Okay, we should be streaming live. Mute this. Hello. We're gonna be waiting a little bit. You know, it's around 4 minutes until 12 o'clock Eastern time. So just wait for a few people to come in. I'm just tidying up a little bit the slides while we're waiting for everybody to come in. All right. It's 12 o'clock. Let's start it. Welcome everybody to the community hangout for what month is it? June. For June. You see, I'm so tired. I forgot what month we have. So I'd like to welcome everybody for this monthly hangout. This is to give you some news, some updates of what is going on with the project, and also hear your opinions, answer some questions quickly, if possible. Anyway, so yeah, I've got some slides prepared. So let me put that up here and then change the screen so that I can show this to you. All right. So these are the slides for the community hangout. So again, welcome everybody, and let's start. So the agenda for today is to, of course, the introduction. As usual, as with every hangout, we would like to thank the whole community and all the contributors for making Phalcon better every day. This is with either pull requests, submissions, submissions of new issues, bugs, questions, as well as discussion on how the framework should progress. Thank you all for doing this. And on the chat, Be Funky or Rude says that he's on the phone. He will be home shortly. So can't wait to see you, buddy. Then we have the status updates since the last hangout. What happened? A quick update on DevTools and Docker. Version 3 and version 4 beta 1, talk about the documentation, what's next, the future, and some questions and answers. Okay, so as usual, I mean, it's becoming very boring for those that have watched all of our hangouts, but we cannot stress this enough. A huge thank you to our awesome community. And we got the links here for all of our social media. We've actually added Parler in there, so if you are on Parler, feel free to follow us. And if you're interested in looking at who has contributed to the framework, the first link is for you. Okay. As usual, quick discussions. Feel free to ping us on Discord. A little bit more elaborate discussions or how-tos or stuff like that, you can ask any questions in our forum. Okay. So the update. Many thanks to a few names here. I'm just picking them up from the pull request that happened. Sid, Cameron, Tactic, Balas, Exmist, Emilio, and many others. We did quite a lot of enhancements. We had a lot of cleanup, more tests, optimizations, and we fixed bugs. As things stand right now, we have 5 open pull requests. We have 89 open issues. And as far as the project is concerned, we have 1 to-do card, which is a bug, but I'm not 100% sure. I marked it as a bug. I need to dive into this. It has something to do with the CLI and the namespaces. And we have 7 cards in progress. 2 are for refactoring. 2 are related to Mongo. As we discussed before, the Mongo class will be removed from Phalcon because it used the underlying driver that it used has been deprecated something like 5 years ago. And you have to keep up with the times. So the goal was to remove Mongo temporarily, at least for V4, and then maybe reintroduce it in 4.1 with the new driver. But Tactix, I think 88, wanted to work on this, and he did make the proof of concept. He worked on that. He upgraded the driver with all the documents. More on that a little bit later. So he's taking that initiative. We have 1 card that is setup related with regards to dependencies. 1 enhancement, and 1 is a questionable, is the bug or not. We'll have to figure it out. And also we have 520 cards done. Now, the number might seem big. It's a little bit less because a card is not only a bug, it's also the pull request for it. In some cases. Some cases it's just a pull request if it's an enhancement. So I would say the actual stuff that we worked on is a little bit over half, let's say 300 issues sorted out. And then we have work done on V3 and V4, and I'll expand on that in a minute. So we have an update for Zephyr. I shouldn't have put continued there. Sorry for the title. So Dream and Sergey have been working on Zephyr. Big thank you to those two guys, as well as others that have contributed with discussion as well as issues and reporting problems. We have released 0.12, which is awesome because we fixed one of the biggest bugs that we ever had, and thanks to Dream for that, as well as Sergey. And now we can finally work on Phalcon and compile Phalcon with 0.12, which actually solved issues that we had in Phalcon as well. Issues that we had in Phalcon. There is an ongoing issue that is worked on. It's the local memory management. It is work in progress. This might not completely relate to the issue name in Zephyr, but I just have it there to remind me what it is. There's work going on to offer async capabilities in Zephyr. And the idea is, as you see it here, we're not going to be using the word yield as, well, at least that's the plan right now. As PHP has the yield and the generators. Well, in Zephyr, we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to have async for naming items instead of for naming items in different loops. We're going to see how this pans out. This is still preliminary stages and work in progress, but we're very happy with the work being done for now. So exciting things to come a little bit later. Again, translation and documentation. This is a slide that I always keep up here. Huge thank you to the people that decided to help the framework by translating the documentation in their own languages. The links are here. You can go to Crowdin and log in with your GitHub account or create a new account yourself, and then choose the language that you're familiar with, and you can start translating the documentation. Now I'm going to expand a little bit more on that further down in the slides with regards to what we're doing with documentation. But this is pretty much the whole process. We're only translating version 4 documents. Translations have to be approved by a proofreader for your language, and then Crowdin automatically pushes those translations to our repository, our docs repository, and then we update the actual website. Okay. Now, an update on DevTools and Docker, and we cannot thank Jeckerson enough for all his hard work. He's the one that took the lead for updating both DevTools as well as the Docker repositories that we're working on. So for DevTools, we released DevTools 3.4.2 with all the bug fixes during the last 6 months or more. There's one issue to solve and probably will be fixed in the 3.4 branch, and we started implement. I'm using we. It's we as a team. I didn't do it. Jeckerson did it. Anton, I believe is his name. But it's kind of like, the whole team. It's the what did the Borg used to say? The collective. There you go. So we are the Borg. So yeah, we started implementing or started working on DevTools 4. It's almost in a beta state. So there's more work to happen on this before we start releasing everything. As far as Docker is concerned, if you guys recall, we did ask GitLab for an open source license, and they were really, really happy to give it to us. So what we're doing now is we're having daily, nightly builds of Docker containers using GitLab, with the distinction of OS and type, I think. So you will be able to see, a container for Xenial, a container for Bionic, a container for whatever Ubuntu flavor there is, and different flavors of PHP. So that increases the list of different containers that we have to have significantly. The structure of the repositories is the same as the directories in the Phalcon/Docker files repository. And we also have the builds of Phalcon inside each OS. So there is still work to be done, but we're moving steadily along. And again, huge thanks to Jefferson for taking the initiative on this. He pretty much saved me I don't know how many weeks to do all that. Also, we have a channel called Docker or DevOps. There are actually two channels in our Discord server. If any questions arise, by all means, come over, join us, and ask your questions there, or offer your suggestions or help. So, to the more exciting things. Not that the Docker and the DevTools are not exciting, but this is kind of like the core framework. So these are the exciting things for the framework. There is a segfault that appeared in a PHP version, I think 7036 or 7035, one of them. Anyway, so there was a kind of like a heated discussion and GitHub, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, moving on, looking forward. The idea was that we should have version 3 as the latest stable release, and offer version 4 as the release that people could upgrade. And in order for us to oh, there you go. By the way, Anton posted a screenshot on how the Docker stuff would actually show, how it would look like. So if you're in the YouTube channel, you can click on the chat. There is an attachment that can show you how this thing works. Coming back to the DevTools. Okay, so back to the framework, and welcome back, Rude. So the idea is that you offer one version, and then you say, okay, this is going to be LTS, long-term support. So we're going to give you support for X amount of years after that. Usually the industry is 2 years for the main core, and then 1 year of support, maybe for security fixes, and then it's done. Well, for version 3, the 3 years have come and gone, right? We're kind of like the average and more. And I do hear the argument that you don't have something to replace version 3, so you don't have version 4 out, so you should extend the LTS. Yeah, that's the general rule, but that's not something that is enforceable. It's nobody's obligated to do that. Okay. Having said that, there are people that have live applications up there and do rely on the framework, and that is something that nobody can forget or discard. So we're gonna release the last version of 3.4.4, I believe. Probably this weekend. I gotta coordinate with Sergey, bearing in mind that he's probably traveling today and tomorrow. So we have to figure out exactly the time. If it's not gonna be this weekend, it's definitely gonna be early next week, in order to fix that segfault. Now, you guys have to bear in mind that it is extremely difficult for us to go back and build version 3. And there's many factors to this. First of all, version 3 supported PHP 5. And in order for us to build DLLs, let's say for PHP 5, we have to fire up 2 different virtual machines, compile the DLLs there, one per version and per, how do you call that? Is it architecture? Yeah, but per version, per architecture, and then it's going to be NTS and non-NTS, the thread safe and non-thread safe. So you're going to have thread safe, non-thread safe, x86, x64, and then the version of PHP. So you're looking at a lot of different DLLs that have to be compiled. Now, I'll admit to my sin. I don't even know where my VMs are anymore. The other 2, I think I have them backed up, but I'll figure it out. So coming back, we have to also match the Zephyr version that we have to use for V3, right? So it's not simple as click on a button. We've added a lot of automation since version 3, and now AppVeyor, a service that a lot of you might have seen it kicking up whenever you issue a pull request. Now with V4, AppVeyor builds the DLLs for us, so we don't have to do this whole manual thing, and it's much easier to build something in V4 versus V3. So just giving you a heads up of the pain, right? Now that doesn't mean that we're forgetting the community and we're forgetting whoever has live applications up there and has trusted Phalcon to be their framework, right? Just giving you a heads up of the reason we're resisting building things on 3 is not because we don't want to support you. It's because it is an old version, and we have to move on at some point. And the more we work on V4, the easier it will become for us to release it rather than wait for V3 or anything like that. Okay, so that's the whole story. Nobody should take it personally that we don't want to help anybody, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, V4 B1. It should be coming up this week. It will depend on how much work I have going on with a few of the cards that are remaining. The major things is that we have to refactor the abstract classes and put the prefix abstract in front of them. That would follow the naming convention that we established a few months back. And it's also a little bit weird because certain classes are abstract and they're used as how should I put it? They're used as placeholders for constants. To give you an idea, the Phalcon DB class is an abstract class, but we use that in order to store constants. Excuse me, to store constants in it, and then use those constants referenced in the whole network and the whole framework, which makes things a little bit interesting. Also, we have to remove the set state static method from any component that uses it. We tried that as we moved along. For instance, when Cameron and I worked on the merge issue that config had, we removed the set state while we were working on that project. But there's certain components that still have that set state. The idea is that the component should never have more than one entry point on initializing itself. It's not good for the soul. So yeah, that's another ongoing thing. We have the reusable interface card that is work to be done. I don't know if Familia will have some time to work on this because that was his initiative, but we'll figure it out. The infrastructure / setup thing that I was talking in the previous slide is to add PSR module to the send module dependencies. Something that Sergey needs to work on. Hint, hint. Then we have one card that says the server request offers an invalid header. Still up there. We haven't been able to verify it. It might be related to the Linux distribution, so we need to investigate on that. And as far as the Mongo update is concerned, I mentioned again that tactics Tix88 has been working on it. He's 70% done. He's working right now on more tests and functionality, and as far as I know, he has to alter a little bit the builder to offer some specific functionality for Mongo and the new stuff that came out with it. Okay. Now, next slide. All right. So what did we do since the last Hangout? We created a lot of factories. We offered a lot of factories in the framework. You're gonna see the Phalcon DB adapter PDO factory, the image factory, logger, interpolator, translator, payload, and we also and these factories are allow you to create easily a new object of that namespace. So the logger factory allows you to create a new logger very quickly. Boom, you're done. It also allows you to get away from the temptation of using x equals new object inside a class. The idea is that you should always inject your dependencies. Either do that or use the IOC, which is the inversion of control, meaning that you use the DI container to pull the dependency inside your class. You should not create a class within a class. And the reason being is that it makes it more difficult to test, and you could have unintended consequences later on if the class that is created inside the other class changes and you have interface change and all that stuff. Plus, it makes it really difficult to follow up what you did 6 months down the line, let alone a new developer. So we offer those classes, and the last two bullet points. The config factory now has a new instance, so you can instantiate a new config using config factory new instance. But also the most exciting thing is that we've added a load method in the server request factory class. This is for those that don't remember, it's the PSR compatible server request. So what you could do is you could create a new server request by just calling load and throwing in that load your super globals. So it will be your server, your files, get, posts, and whatever else is there. So yeah, you could do that. And of course, this was influenced by the implementation of Zendiactoros. We've added doc blocks in our code to give them credit for how they've done it. Ours is a little bit different, but the idea came from them. Okay. So the quick show of what I was talking about to instantiate a factory. So if I want to create an INI factory, an INI config, I create my factory and I just say, okay, factory, give me a new instance. These are my options. This is the INI adapter. So the first one is the name of the adapter that you want. And there you go, you got it. And what I mentioned earlier with regards to the load, you throw in your server, get, post, cookies, and files, and there's your server request. All right. Also, on beta 1, and this is a little bit of ongoing work on some of these things. Some of it has already been done. So the idea is to move the objects out of the parent namespace. So each object will be in its own folder. So pretty much when you clone Phalcon, you should see a bunch of folders. That's it. There is a reason behind this. So there is a method to the madness, if you want to call it. And the reason I'm saying this, that there's a method to the madness, because you might see some things that are a little bit weird. So to give you an example, well, cache component. How should we call the cache component, right? Stands to reason that you would call it Phalcon cache, right? But no, the Phalcon component, the cache component is now called Phalcon/cache/cache. So there's two cache words there. Now, I haven't been able to find a really good way of making this not have the two words in it. So Phalcon/cache/cache, and the cache component not to be in the parent namespace. So both the file is not in the parent folder and it's not in the parent namespace. So some of these things might seem a little bit weird, but I guess we'll all have to get used to it. The reason behind moving everything into its own folder is looking ahead into the future. There is an effort and a discussion to actually split Phalcon into much, much smaller components. Okay, so imagine looking at the file structure. We're looking at ACL annotations, assets, cache, and so on and so forth. Well, imagine if each of those folders was one extension that you could load on your server. All right. Now, for those that don't want to bother, we could potentially load the whole thing. All right. So you would just load one extension. But what if you just wanted, let's say, the crypt functionality, or you just wanted ACL? Where we would like to go, and it's not 100% sure that we could go there. Right. There's a lot of technical things that we need to work out. Where we would like to go is to be able to compile just the crypt extension from the crypt folder, and then just load that, and that would be it. That's all you need. So you have less memory consumption. Again, this is still discussion. There's a lot of technical things, but moving all the files into their own folders, their own directories, and their own namespaces makes this potentially future thing much easier and less refactor. And since we're splitting from 3 to 4 and using Semver, we can break interfaces. Now is the time to do this work. Again, we're not 100% sure that this would materialize in the future, but we're doing some legwork right now in order to be able to do something in the future, and that's what we're thinking of. I mentioned this before. We need to rename all the abstract classes with abstract as the prefix. And this is again for the naming convention. The annotations adapter files has been renamed to annotation adapter stream. So pretty much any reference to files has been renamed to stream in the framework. And the last bullet point of the renaming bullet is the Phalcon filter has been renamed to Phalcon filter. And again, it comes up to what I mentioned before. We're moving objects into their parent namespaces. Again, this looks a little bit weird. Phalcon filter, really? So, but I was not able to find a better way to just depict that. So have one and the other at the same time. So by all means, the discussion is always open. If somebody has a better way of doing this or a better renaming scheme, by all means, just let us know. Couple of refactoring things that we did. The Phalcon config/config is now using the collection object instead of an internal array that we had some problems with, or even array object that we found out that we had some problems with, and we don't really know where that came from. And the Phalcon registry aligns more now with the collection. And also, the models manager, the relations are working much better because there's some work that happened there. And also in the collection namespace, we now have a brand new collection object, which is called read collection. So if you ever want to create something that you can populate it upon construction and then not allow the developers to change it, kind of like you can have the read-only collection. Okay, just like a helper method. There we go. I think. All right. Was that the correct slide? Oh, I had 2 slides of the same thing. That's why. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. By all means, ask any questions if you want in the chat or in Discord later on and all that. So with the documentation, it is ongoing, right? We have the status. We have a status, the issue 2322. It gives a status of where we're going on. We have another issue on things to update. And also we're taking advantage of the labels in GitHub. So any pull request or issue that has the label docs needed has not been translated into the current documentation. Last weekend, I worked on the cache one, and I went through the whole thing, just added what you need to do with your cache, added all the adapter serializers, this, that, the other. So pretty much everything that you need to know about how to create a cache object is there. So of course that one was marked as done. We have to do the same thing for pretty much all the documents. To give you an idea what I was talking about, this is how the cache documentation looks like right now. You see, beautiful little what you call it, warnings there and bullet points, and that implements PSR 16. So that's how it looks. More than welcome to have a look at it. Right now it is live, and if you think that there's typos or anything like that, by all means issue a pull request in the docs repository. And we also had a new API generation. So this one generates the API straight from the Zephyr files. So anything that's in Zephyr and docblocks and all that stuff gets parsed and gets pushed here. Now, the idea is that the API documentation should never be used as the actual documentation. So in this case, for the cache component, people should actually be reading the cache article and then just going into the API documentation just to make sure that certain things are okay. So the API would actually give you whether the constructor accepts a mixed factory or something like that, or the services and all that stuff. Okay. Actually, this looks that it's not 100% correct. I have to change it. Now I've noticed it. Come on, get away from here. This hover. So where it actually says construct mixed factory, it's actually a serializer factory that needs to be passed in. So it's okay. I'll fix that. So yeah, that's the new API documents. Now, what is left? Of course, we need to fix the project cards. The add PSR as a mandatory module and the Mogo, these two can wait before we release beta, or even before we release the stable version. Kind of. I mean, the Mongo can wait. The PSR as a mandatory module, that's questionable. What we need to do is complete the documentation. We need to revise around 70 documents, spell check them, enhance them, alter them, whatever. Dev tools for V4. We need a fully working dev tools in order to help our developers. And then we have to change Vokuro and the Phalcon API applications to work with V4. So once we do all those, then we can go to the last bullet point. We're going to have a party, and it's probably looking at the next Hangout, depending on how busy we are. So I'm very generous right now. I'm putting 1 month ahead in order to be able to release V4 stable. And of course, it will also depend once we release the beta, as soon as people start working with it, whatever bugs they find. Because the minute somebody finds a bug in beta, we're gonna have to fix it, right? It makes sense. So yeah, that's what is left and what the plan is for beta to stable. In the future, as I mentioned before, we need to clarify what the LTS is and how long it will be. We need to be more proactive with bugs and features. And the reason I put that up there, it's not that we're not proactive. We're trying, right? But there might be sometimes that how should I put this? There have been times that bugs were reported in the repository, and they have been left there like forever until the stale bot picked them up and closed them on its own. Well, the proactiveness happens with actually reading what the bug report is or what the issue is, and then classifying it with a label. Sometimes we just need more information. Sometimes it's clearly a bug, or sometimes we know that this is clearly an NFR. Okay, so at least we have to do this categorization, because once we do this categorization, then we can actually schedule it as to when it's going to be fixed. With the use of labels and projects that GitHub offers, we're now able to manage the project much easier. For instance, we've been asked before, what's the roadmap for Phalcon? And as an effort to give more information to the community, we started having these hangouts. We started using the GitHub projects in order for people to see what cards we have to build. And if you go to GitHub, you're going to see a second project. It's the 4.1 project, which already has a good number of cards, whether those are certain bugs or certain feature requests that we're going to address in 4.1. Okay. Also, key to the success is to have smaller releases. So we shouldn't be, we're not going to, and we started doing this with 4.1, right? With 4.0, excuse me. That's why we had 5 alphas. The key is to have as small releases as possible, and we're not afraid to have let's say 4.0.25. I mean, as a smaller version, uh, because we're such a small team, and we just have lives as well. We just want to make sure that people don't feel stranded, because sometimes you might have a huge thing that you need to build. It's going to be a huge rabbit hole, and that might take you months to do it. So yeah, using the cards, using the GitHub project, taking a Scrum-based approach in fixing cards and all that stuff, plus these hangouts here and interaction with our social media and Discord and we really need to the goal is to keep everybody happy with quicker bug fixes, and that's what the be more proactive. And I do agree with you, Rude. Developers don't have a life. My wife keeps on saying that I live in her basement. That gives you an idea. The other thing that we have is we started an initiative to sponsor more Zephyr development with funds. We've already reached out to a couple of people, see if they're willing to help us with Zephyr for paid work. We're going to try and get more of Dreams in as time, more of his time, and compensate him for it in order to push Zephyr even further, because the better Zephyr becomes, the better Phalcon becomes. So any optimization that comes with Zephyr will not benefit your own extension that you build in Zephyr. It will also benefit Phalcon. And that's the link, what I'm talking about, the funds that we have in Open Collective. I believe the last time I checked was around $15,000 or a little bit more. So even though we're very stingy in paying for stuff, we don't mind sponsoring X amount of developers to do certain work that we require as the as for the framework. So if you ask me, let's say I had this WizKid, right, that came over and said, I'm going to fix all your Zephyr bugs in in one go, and I want $10,000. I wouldn't mind just paying that money and get that out of the way and fix it and have a more rock solid product, or base, if you like. So that's where we're at, and that's the link for anybody that's interested in parting with some of their money. so, so yeah, and now it's Q&A, and thank you. Every dollar counts. Yes, it does, Ruth. Every dollar does count. Um, Let me just change this to, where's the camera? Should stop. Should go back to camera. All right. And by the way, this is my Phalcon Backfest T-shirt. Thank you to Rude for the logo with the little ladybugs and cockroaches and everything, the little bugs. This is to show everybody that the ones that I don't remember if I showed this to you guys in a previous hangout. If I did, sorry, I'm getting old, so don't mind me. Um, the overlay, what overlay, man? Oh, it's gonna be in the next hangout, and I'll explain on that in a minute, Rude. So yeah, whoever participated in our April Blogfest actually got one of these T-shirts as a thank you. And you know, if you didn't participate, you lost. So what is Rude talking about the overlay? Um, the way the way YouTube does the streaming is through Hangouts on Air. All right, and as it is typical for Google, they're they're getting rid of certain things. So they got rid of Google Wave, as we all remember, and that's a bad thing. They got rid of this, that, the other, Inbox. So they're getting rid of Hangouts on Air. I think they're trying to change everything to one of their newer projects, or whatever it's called, Meet or something like that. So in the past, and in this Hangout anyway, what I do is I click on the link from their what is called it's YouTube Classic Studio or something like that, and then it pops up a little window and it creates a hangout between me and YouTube, right? And then on that little pop-up window, I can actually see myself, or I can actually flip it over to screen sharing, and that makes it really easy for me because it's just a click, right? Now, well, they're getting rid of that. So what I had to do is I had to research how things are done, and I figured out that I have to download a piece of software called OBX. And then in that OBX, you decide where your scenes are. And a scene is a collection of different inputs. So one scene could be your camera, one scene could be your left monitor, one scene could be your browser, or stuff like that. And in the camera scene, what I've done is I put two inputs. One would be the camera, and the other one would be an image. And Rude gave me an image that would go at the bottom that says Phalcon and all that stuff. Makes it a little bit more professional. So next Hangout, we're gonna use that that overlay, as it called. It's kind of like at the bottom somewhere. Where is it? Somewhere here. It should come somewhere here at the bottom of it. So yeah, that's the news for today. Yeah, it's called lower third, but not many people know that it is called the lower third. So I was just making sure that everybody knows what it is. So any questions, anybody? Concerns? Salute, by the way. My little smoking thingy. All right, I guess no more questions. We need some ideas how to celebrate the release. That can wait, I guess. Figure it out amongst you guys. To be quite frank with you, I'm tired. I'm just exhausted. It's been what, 7 months, 8 months of nonstop nonstop development. And it's not only us; it's you, the community, as well, with offering help and installing, testing, and everything like that. So The four bullet points that I showed you what's left to do, those are the ones that I'm concentrating on. Um, my personal plan is to try and get the cards out this weekend, so that we don't have any code changes anymore, and then concentrate completely on the documentation. Just finish it, get out of the way, and once that is done, and also, by the way, offer regular updates so that people can actually go and check things, see where things are. Maybe the cache, for instance, that I mentioned, that document is missing something, right? We can just add it right there and then. Um, and then once that is done, go full speed ahead with helping Jackerson or Anton with dev tools so that we can get that part of the application done, and then uh, spend a few days to upgrade the two applications that I mentioned, Vokura and the Phalcon API. With that, there's a lot of things that I would have loved to see, but we did mention before that there's no way that you can just say, all right, by framework, there's your brand new framework. You have to do everything in stages. And I understand that a lot of people turn around and said, well, I'm not upgrading. V4 doesn't offer much, and this is understandable. It offers a lot of refactoring. It doesn't offer new features. So we didn't introduce this brand new thing that we didn't have before. Uh, maybe a couple of things, especially with PSR7, but not many people use PSR7 currently in V3 applications. So PSR7 doesn't help them per se. I think the biggest changes would happen in V5, where all this structure that we worked on right now is going to actually produce the foundation for V5 to move forward. And then, of course, we're going to see a lot more people upgrading. And yes, I was skeptical, Anton, on using OBS, but once I played a little bit and watched a couple of videos how things are done. I think it's really cool and easy to work with. So we're definitely gonna be drinking coffee for the celebration, Rude. Which reminds me, Rude, we definitely need to see your Bugfest T-shirt when you're DJing. Uh, I think Balas was the one that sent me a yeah coffee, man. Balas was the one that sent me a picture of him um, and on his workstation, and one of the guys, I don't remember who it was, actually used his girlfriend or his wife, and she's the one that put the T-shirt on, and they took a picture of her, which was cool. So kudos for the uh, thinking out of the box right there. Um, I will need to create a little collage of all of us wearing the April Bugfest T-shirts. So in our Facebook group, we have a really funny meme of what Phalcon developers look like. But I would like to create a little collage of what we actually look like with our Bugfest T-shirts. So uh, whoever watches this and got a T-shirt, you gotta send us a picture, man. All right. I guess no further questions. We're 15 minutes in. We're just gonna chit chat for a little bit more, I guess. See if anybody has any more questions, and then call it a day. And I'll give you the rest of your weekend back. And I'll go dive into my Falcon stuff. Yeah, that was you. Okay. Yeah, that was Anton that sent a picture of his wife, girlfriend, wife. Yes, wife or daughter. I don't know. I mean, there was no. It was just a T-shirt. So hey, uh, that's perfectly fine. And yeah, definitely, Rude. Share the ideas for the release. I mean, when we release, we can actually have you streaming on the decks, just playing funky music and all that, live from the Netherlands, the U.S., and whatever. I guess when we get to the release, I don't know. I have to figure out a way to bring more people in and just have them talk as well, not just me blabbering, because this seems just only me talking, and everybody else has the ability to just type in the chat. I would like to make it more of a meeting kind of thing, where we can talk about the good things, the bad things, and the ugly things that V4 brought in. So, you know, I'd love to do that, but that's a little bit further down the line. There's still quite a bit of work to be done. To give you an idea, just the set state to remove it is a pain in the behind because there's so many tests that rely on the set state that I have to redo all of them. So yeah. Um, so Rude, I don't know. I mean, we could. I mean, if we had the Hangouts, you could have had 10 people joining in, right? But Hangouts is going away, so what the hell? Or maybe Hangouts on Air is going away August 1st. Oh, maybe we will be able to do something about that. We'll see. We'll see. Ideally, it's gonna be X amount of people join in into a room, and then we broadcast that to YouTube, something like that. Or we'll probably use OBS for that. So, hey, Colin. Hi, I remember Colin or Callan. Sorry. Um. Okay, so I'm an early adopter of Phalcon, and I hate the fact that I cannot convince people switching to it. It's like everyone is blended into Symfony and Laravel. Any thoughts? Yes, many thoughts. Actually, before I answer the question, I gotta show you something, guys. So, for those that did not notice, hold on a sec. There. Um, for those that did not notice, I was kind of like missing in action for a couple of days, and the reason being is, let me share this with you. Let's see, screen share. The reason is this. So, um, so yeah, I was away for a couple of days. I came back home yesterday. So any interaction I had that was just through the phone or very briefly on on the computer. So this gentleman over here is Max Castro. So a lot of you have seen him as MC Tech. He's one of our sponsors for the project, and also you have seen him in Discord as Kaikonen. He's also the author of the Baka library, and he's solely responsible for offering code that enhance the helper functions. So helper array and helper string, a lot of these functions were things that he and his team provided. So Max is from, excuse me, I need some coffee. All right, Max is from the Dominican Republic, and he had some business to attend here with his wife. So He actually made a stop in Baltimore. Baltimore is in Maryland, for those that don't know. It's on the east coast of the U.S. And we talked about it. And he said, we got to meet. So what happened is I actually drove and stayed at the hotel there, and we spent 2 days together, and then I drove back yesterday. So these are our ugly faces. Sadly, he did not have his Phalcon T-shirt with him, but he does have one. So that's Max, and that's what I've been doing. And the reason I brought this thing up was because we actually discussed exactly what Callan mentions here. Is that and to quote, I hate the fact that I cannot convince people switching to Phalcon. It's everyone is blended to Symfony and Laravel. Any thoughts? So to answer the question is, um, uh, at least for me, and I believe Max offered a little bit more help into understanding this whole structure, is who is using Phalcon and who is using Laravel. And I'm going to use just Laravel, nothing against them, of course, Laravel or Symfony. All right, who is using A and who is using B? So you will see a huge amount of people using Laravel or Symfony that not necessarily have a clean grasp of what PHP is and what PHP can do, and it comes back to the fact that how much do you want to stretch your framework in order to do what you want? It boils down to architecture. Okay, so I'll give you the example, and I'll bring it back to what we've been talking about. The example that I can give you is, for instance, you have um, you have some code, right? And you're trying to access an array variable that doesn't exist, or an array element that doesn't exist. Of course, that would produce a notice in your logs, right? Now, some developers would turn around and say, "Well, I don't care about that. I'll just suppress the error handler. So I'm not going to fix this in my code." And some developers would turn around and say, no, this has to be fixed because it's a memory limitation. It might be a micro memory waste, but doesn't matter. So the answer that you usually get from a good number of developers is that, who cares? Just throw more horsepower to the server, right? So and I brought this tiny example. Of course, that tiny example with the notices is not gonna make or break your application, but cumulatively, a lot of these little things would actually get you to a bad situation in the end. And the solution is not to have a really good architecture, really good coding practices, really good design. The solution for a lot of developers is throw more money into the problem. Beef up the server, get more memory, get more horsepower, put a load balancer, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that is a great number of developers that I have personally looked at. Okay, personally interacted with. Uh, and there's a smaller number of developers that know exactly what the application needs to do, and they know exactly how to design it. And it might not be a perfect design, but they know how to go about it. Okay, so having those two splits of developers, I would personally again, and Max agreed with me on that, I would personally say that on the first bucket, if you like, are the ones that prefer to use Laravel. And on the second bucket are the ones that are more inclined to use Phalcon. And here's why. The first bucket, the people that don't really care about optimizations and performance and all that stuff, are going to be more inclined traditionally to just do something quickly and say, well, it works, bye, next, let's go to the next thing. And on the second bucket, the ones that care about design, the ones that take their time to ensure that your application is future proof, that you have proper abstractions, so on and so forth, are more inclined to use Phalcon because of the performance, because they know you're gonna get it. Now, if you have people that are on the first category and that are curious, then you're more likely gonna bring them over to your side in order to show them that, hey, this is how Phalcon does it, and this is how you can expand on this. The great asset that Phalcon has is not only the fact that it is memory resident and it's high performance and so on and so forth. It's the fact that it does not restrict you into what you want to do. So you could potentially use, let's say, a Laravel application, right? You have everything right there, blah, blah, blah. And let's assume that, for argument's sake, you have the Phalcon module installed. Within your Laravel application, you can use Phalcon. It doesn't stop you from doing that. It doesn't restrict you to a particular folder structure, a particular controller structure, and so on and so forth. The only huge requirements, I would say, is that when you use the MVC, your class should be suffixed with action. So view action, edit action, and this and that. That's not a huge thing to worry about. For instance, I'm just looking at the list of the folders here, right? Let's say you wanted to use the filter component. Well, lo and behold, you can use it anywhere. You can even use it in a PHP script for all you care. There's no restriction as to what you're going to be doing there. And with the latest efforts that we made to make it more PSR compatible, that will allow you to take Phalcon components and drop them into different applications, not necessarily Phalcon ones, but different applications that abide by the PSR standards. So for instance, the logger component, you can easily drop it right now anywhere you want. Anything that implements PSR 16, which is symbol cache, again, you can just drop it in there, right? So it's not, um, it's always going to be the vast majority of developers are going to be the ones that would want to do something quick, and that they would want the framework to do all the heavy lifting for them. All right. I don't think that Phalcon would ever get into that group, because Phalcon requires you to actually start thinking of your strategy and how you want to lay things down. Yeah, absolutely. You can take, for instance, Vokuro and the Phalcon API, and can clone them and can use those as your blueprint. I totally agree with that. And then we could potentially create some composer functionality where you can just write composer create project blah blah, and then it would bring all that structure into your machine, and then you can just do whatever you want. I agree, but that's not a restrictive thing, right? The setup depends on you, and what you use depends exactly on you. So convincing other people to work with Phalcon, uh, the first is the memory residency, the speed. Second is definitely the loose coupling. You can mix and match whatever you want to use. And a third thing that I would potentially offer is the fact that um, it does use MVC, so it's not an alien concept. All you have to do is just decide what you want to use. I mean, I've looked at Laravel, to give you an idea, a couple of times, and there are many spots that I'm thinking, well, why are they doing this? Why is this so much chaining? Blah blah, get user, and then do this, and then do that, and then do that, and it becomes kind of like a railroad to just do very simple things. And at least for me, you can call me old or whatever, which I am. I prefer to be able to read things easier on the screen and not have things that are questionable. What do I mean by that? take the code that you wrote 6 months ago and come and look at it today. You're gonna see that some things you don't understand. You have to go back and figure it out what you were doing at that point. All right. If you are the one that doesn't remember what you've done 6 months ago, let alone a brand new developer, what would they do? Right. So, but by having a framework that does a ton of things with chaining and has special keywords that do different things, um, is not something that I would personally like. Right. I'd like to be able to see, how should I put this? Let's say I want to update a record, and the related records. I like to see that flow. So in this part of the code, I'm updating the record. In this part of the code, I'm calling save. In this part of the code, I'm updating the relationship. In this part of the code, I call save on the relationship. In this part, I commit the transaction. I like to see that thing, and that's just me, right? A lot of developers, you're gonna see that they're very happy with chain this and chain that and call this and call that and then click save and you're done. Fair enough. But those are going to be the developers that are going to be doing most likely, that are going to be doing the quick and easy route. So you answer your question. Most devs are learning frameworks, not programming. Exactly. Recently, I got this book, which is my new prized possession. Hold on. I got this book. Sorry for the glare. So it's from Von Vernon, the domain-driven design, and it actually explains how domain-driven design is there, and what we do and how it can actually help you. Uh, what is the notion of an entity? What is the notion of a value object and all that stuff? And the reason I'm reading all these things, you can turn around and say, well, you're old, dude. How long are you going to be coding? Well, the problem is that as these technologies evolve, any technology, as we evolve, we find things and we create things that are easier for us to comprehend and for the applications to adapt. So, is domain-driven design going to help Phalcon? That's my point. Is it going to help me as a developer to be able to solve a problem later on? I would bet money that some of those developers that you mentioned never had these two books. All right, these are Martin Fowler's books, one for the refactoring and one for the enterprise pattern. These are kind of like my Bibles, right? I use those pretty much every day or every other day. And the reason I use those is because I want to ensure that the implementation that I'm providing for this particular thing that I'm doing in my code is the best possible. Okay, I'm not clickety click framework. Oh, well, I've done this, I've done that. Because here's the problem. If you rely on a framework, and I'm not passing judgment on anybody, right? Everybody can program the way they want to. It's entirely up to them, right? But if you're programming against the framework by only using the framework and not your brain, then lo and behold, you're going to be faced with something that you need to do and you cannot do it. I'll give you an example. For instance, the component that we discussed earlier, the cache component, right? That cache component accepts drivers or adapters, as they call it. So you can cache in Redis, you can cache in the file, in the stream, you can cache in memcached, and so on and so forth. All right, so if you're using Phalcon as just the framework, then your options are just those adapters, right? Well, what if your boss comes over and turns around and says, well, I want to be able to store data in Mongo, and I want to be able to cache data in Mongo? What are you going to do? If you don't know how to extend an interface and implement something for you, then you're stuck. Then you're Googling all the time, or you're searching GitHub in case somebody created a composer friendly package that you can bring in, that you can use as an adapter for the task that you're working on. It's a little bit of extreme. Yeah, resign. It's a little bit extreme of what I just said, but it gives you guys an idea of the mindset that people that work with Phalcon have, and the mindset that people that don't work with Phalcon have. Now, I'm generalizing here. Of course, there are huge exceptions here and there, right? But most likely, you're going to see people that program with Laravel and so on and so forth, most likely, right? That know the framework more than they know programming. And because the framework is so friendly, meaning it allows you to do a lot of things, it doesn't how should I put this? It doesn't allow you to think. It does it for you. Well, if that is the case, then great. But then you reap the results, and you're never gonna change because you've never learned how to code, so to speak. Uh, I'm I'm just using big words here and huge generalizations, and nothing against any Laravel programmer or any programmer at all. But I'm just trying to show you that there are two sets of people that uh, that uh, um, that do this, and the ones that go straight with frameworks and they use just the framework for their work most likely are not able to go into the advanced stage. And Phalcon is tending to be on the advanced stage because you have the ability to do anything you want, and people don't like to make choices in that respect, or some of them anyway. I hope that uh, that helps. I mean, I've seen all kinds of developers in the past. I've seen people that only know clickety click 20 commands. There's your application. We've done it. There it is. And then when you're turning around and say, for instance, an API application, I once said, when I'm looking at the API code, I'll give you the example, right? So. Um, there was a time that we had there was a build of an API, right? And in that particular instance, each namespace, if you like, so you would have, let's say, customers would be one namespace. Then you would have whatever, cars, another one. Take care, Rude. So cars and customers, right? So in the customers, you do /add, /edit, /delete, and so on and so forth. So cars, customers, and let's say, what else can we put in there? Let's say trucks, whatever. So you had these three namespaces. Um, when you were getting one request in from the API, one of the things that that particular API would do would be to scan the files, scan the file system, load the files with required ones, and then figure out what you wanted, and then go and execute the method inside that particular required file. So it wasn't even using another loader to find the file. It wasn't using the mapping. It wasn't using anything like that. Okay. That was written with the Phalcon Micro application. So the API worked fine. No questions asked, no problems, blah, blah, blah. But there was something wrong. I mean, it wasn't as fast as it could be. Uh, at that point, we actually looked at it and did some refactoring, and of course, the introduction of namespaces and the loader was, spot on, because you would only load one thing. But The other thing that we did is the approach that we have taken with the Phalcon API repository that's on GitHub. It was one method per file. So when you're calling add, you would only call the /cars/add.php, and that file will contain the code only for the add, nothing else. And the rationale behind it was, if you're scanning the file system for all these files, or all these namespaces, so to speak, you're actually wasting time. And then you're loading them in memory, in which point PHP has to interpret them. And then you're using one tiny fraction of those files, which is the action that you called. Of course, people would turn around and say, well, you know what? You're full of poop because OP cache just kills this. True. However, the added benefit of that is that you can maintain those files easier. It's much easier to shift through a file that has 300 lines than a file that has 5,000 lines, right? Control F is going to burn your fingers in order to try and find some things. So later on, what we also did in that particular API, because it was the Phalcon micro one, we started using the lazy loading of those classes, right? Well, these two things, right, this slight refactoring, we managed to squeeze 40% more performance out of the Phalcon. Same equipment, same everything. It's just these two design decisions. So bring that back to what you were talking about, Colin. Is one is I'm just using a plain vanilla implementation the way that it came in, or the way I thought about it. And the second one is actually think what the problem is and adjust your solution towards that. So that's where I want to close this. Oh man, I've been blabbering for 20 minutes. What's up with that? And I did say that I wanted all to stay online for 10. All right. So unless we don't have any other questions, we're going to call it a day. ZomboDB, Postgres, Elasticsearch, Redis, and Phalcon. It is impossible to have okay, I'll have a look at the ZomboDB. Never heard of that. Making Postgres and Elasticsearch work together like 2099. That is cool. You know, I've been looking at different things. So, for instance, I've been looking at alternatives to Elasticsearch, and one of the things that I did see is the Redis search. The problem is that Redis search is a module, and if you're going down the route of Amazon Web Services and you're using Redis there as part of their Elastic Cache offering, they don't allow you to load the Redis search module, and as such, your Redis is not performing as a search. This ZomboDB looks fine. I'll definitely look into that. Wow, so cool. Choose your Linux. Okay. All right. So thank you all for coming. Thank you to everybody that will be watching this later on. As my daughter would say, make sure you click subscribe and click like and subscribe, and don't forget to enable notifications. So, Thank you all and have a blessed day.